Trying out some new royalty-free music. All right, let's turn this off if I can. All right, in the mortal words of Lex Friedman, Elon Musk makes Twitter fun. Today, we're going to talk about Elon Musk's $39 billion offer to buy all of Twitter. If Elon succeeds and the Twitter board and the shareholders accept this offer, will Twitter become a free place to freely express yourself, have a lot of freedom of expression, or will it become a cesspool of disinformation and hate speech? That's really what's at stake here. We're going to answer all those questions, and I'm going to tell you how this is going to end by the end of this live. At first, what I want to do is I want to say hi to some early adopters. Here, Yoke Tesla left a comment, strategy is clear. He is only doing it as a meme. It says here, there is no money in Twitter, and he would need to sell the stock in the actually companies he cares about just to buy money-losing businesses. Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to get to that one too. We also have the Salon Life. Ian, I love your channel. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. So we're going to start talking about the offer. First of all, Elon's offer for Twitter. Now, it is way more complicated to buy a publicly traded company than just go to Twitter's San Francisco headquarters and say, listen, I'm the richest person in the world and I want to buy your company. Way more complicated than that. You need to execute a legal strategy for a publicly traded corporate takeover. And there's two different types. There's the friendly takeover. That is what's recommended by most M&A attorneys, certainly the attorneys that I've worked with when we're dealing with corporate takeovers. And that is that the person who wants to buy all of a company, take over the company, approaches the board and says, listen, I want to take over this company. I want to provide you with a fair price. I'd like your cooperation. Will you enter into an agreement in which we explore me taking over this company? And what are the terms and conditions? And you get the cooperation of the board of directors and oftentimes the larger minority shareholders. That's the way that most tycoons, most billionaires approach takeovers. They don't do what appears like Elon has done here, and that is executed the hostile takeover strategy. And that basically is, listen, I'm just going to take this company over. I don't believe that negotiation with the board of directors or with the shareholders is going to bear any fruit. And so as a result, I'm just going to offer to pay this amount of money. You're going to be forced to a vote and I'm going to win. So Elon, being the maverick that he is in business culture and in technology culture, has opted for this hostile takeover strategy, which is not recommended by me. I would never recommend a client of mine to do a hostile takeover strategy. Why? Well, think about it. If you executed the friendly legal strategy, then presumably you're going to have access to Twitter's books. And if you're going to pay $39 billion for a publicly traded company and then take it private, you really would want to look at the books. I know that there's lots of mandatory disclosures with the SEC and with other governmental agencies, but the bottom line is you would like to have a peek at what you're buying for $39 billion. You also get the cooperation of the board of directors and a lot of them, the larger minority shareholders, if it's a friendly takeover. Oftentimes you can close faster. You can get the company in your possession faster if you have cooperation. So it's never advised to do a hostile takeover, and rarely do they work. And when they do work, it appears, or most of the time, the person who's executing this legal strategy has to pay way more than the initial offer because there's other bidders, there's other defense strategies that the shareholders have. We're going to talk about this one defense strategy that rose up in the news called the poison pill in a few moments. But there's lots of problems when you do a hostile takeover. I wanted to say hi to Sim Architect. Good to see you, Sim. And Daniel Batal, thanks for joining us. Honest question, is Elon Musk truly a modern robber baron, or do we believe he is somehow doing all of this selflessly to improve social media? Well, Daniel, I think you know as well as I that Elon Musk has his best interests at heart when he's doing this. we're going to watch some of the interviews. We're going to look at some of the articles concerning this. And I'm sure that in Elon's heart, he wants to do well in the world or do good in the world. But I got to say that he's also looking at his bottom line. And so we're going to go through a lot of the details about this, but I have to believe that there's something behind this attempt to do a hostile takeover in Twitter. You got to look at all. We're going to go through all the factors you got to consider when you're doing a corporate takeover. But when you add up all those factors, it wasn't the best way to be able to take over this company and to do good in the world by promoting freedom of speech. So I think you got my answer, Daniel. But we're gonna explain it even more. We got Joe Botts here. I haven't tasted liberal tears since Trump. This is awesome news. Oh, Joe, come on, Joe. All right, so we talked in the beginning about the two different legal strategies for corporate takeover. That's the friendly, that's the hostile. Friendly is recommended, hostile's not. You don't get the cooperation, you don't get to see the books. When you're spending $39 billion, you really want to be able to see the books of the company. So I would never recommend that a client of mine do a hostile takeover. So now, once you've thought about the legal strategy you're going to execute to be able to get this publicly traded company, you got to think about how many shares you actually want, because oftentimes you can take over the company without buying 100%. And then you also want to think about what is the share price that you want to pay for this takeover. So we understand from the letter that Elon wrote to the chairman of the board of directors for Twitter that Elon wants 100% of Twitter because he wants to take the company private. We're not exactly sure why that is. I mean, there's the argument that with corporate shareholders and big influence in the company, that they somehow alter adversely the discourse on Twitter. I don't know that doesn't happen in when the company is private, but we can talk about that later. Now, Elon's offered price, we talked about before, is $39 billion or $54 per share, which I got to say is way above the current price for Twitter right now, which I believe is about $45. So it's about $9 higher. So if I was a lawyer looking at this, I would say it's quite reasonable. I mean, especially as an opening offer. We're going to talk about the language in Elon's letter to Brett Taylor later on, because we don't know that this is an opening offer. But I got to tell you, most of the time when you're having a corporate takeover, you're going to offer above the current share price, and you're not going to offer a tremendous amount above it, right? Because you don't want to get locked into it. Maybe you can get that for a deal. Maybe you're going to have to bid up. And I think that Twitter share prices has been up to $77 before. So 54 is very reasonable for an opening offer, but is not quite probably going to do it. That's my opinion. So when you say that you want to buy all of a publicly traded company, I got to tell you, it's not exactly an easy thing to execute. Now, generally, the rule is in corporate law that a company cannot force its shareholders to sell to another person, except in the advent of a corporate takeover. A lot of corporations have either articles of incorporation, more likely bylaws, which are the rules of how the corporation functions. I can't wait to compare corporations with DAOs when we talk about Web3. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. But those are the rules of the corporation, and they usually allow for when there's a takeover bid that there's a vote of some amount of shareholders to be able to say yay or nay. Now, sometimes the articles of incorporation or bylaws say that it's a majority. So 51% say yes, then the company can force the minority shareholders to sell their shares, either get cash or get shares in the company that's acquiring Twitter, or some combination of both. Or sometimes in the bylaws, there's a requirement that there be a supermajority, and that 66% of the shareholders have to vote yes, 70%, sometimes even 90% in order to ward off takeover requests. So what I'm saying in this part of our talk today is that it is hard to get the shareholders to uniformly vote for yes, the takeover is warranted. I did look today, and I'm going to put on the screen. Where do we have here? Because I have the actual figure. Okay, let's see. This is always the way. Okay, there we go. And I have it may not be evident here. Sorry. There's so much information that's been talked about today, but I have the shareholder list. Somehow someone got a hold of it here, and it's a computer screen. I don't know if you can see this, but bottom line is some of the larger shareholders like Vanguard and Morgan Stanley and BlackRock, they own about 24.8% of Twitter. And by all accounts, they say that they would, or that it's thought that they would go along with Elon. And then with his 9%, it could be, depending upon the rules of the bylaws of the corporation, it could be a majority or close to a majority for approval of a takeover. But there are a lot of shareholders, and I have to tell you, there's some shareholders which have come out today and talked about the fact that they would not do the deal. Case in point on that is, sorry for the flicking here, is I believe his name is Prince Alawaleed Talal. He said, I hope you can see this on the screen. He said, I don't believe that the proposed offer by Elon Musk of $54.20 comes close to the intrinsic value of Twitter, given its growth prospects. Now, you have to expect this, right? No, when you're negotiating something, when the richest person in the world wants to buy something from you, and he presents you with a reasonable offer, if I was your lawyer, I would say you never accept it, right? He's the richest, $219 billion net worth or something like that. I may be off $1 billion or something. But you never accept that first offer because you know there's room to grow. And I got to tell you, that's what the prince here is basically saying is, oh, I would never do this. It's worth way more than $54.20. That's very, by the playbook for negotiations. Let's see here. So let me see. So I guess the point of it is that it would be very difficult for Elon to get a majority of shareholders to vote for this deal. And also that $54 share price, while reasonable, is probably not going to seal the deal. We already have some indication by the Saudi prince that it's not reasonable. And frankly, it's the obligation of the board of directors when they get a takeover bid like this to go look for other bidders out there. They have a fiduciary obligation to the shareholders to get the best deal per shares when there's a takeover offer. And so the Twitter board has got to go out to people that maybe offered in the past, like Disney or Salesforce or whatever, and tell them, hey, listen, Elon wants to buy this company for 54. Do you have a counter offer? Apple has been talked about as maybe having some interest in taking over Twitter. God knows why. But they've got to be able to find that. And frankly, oftentimes they can find that from companies as a means to get a better price from Elon. However, we have not seen these large companies come out and say that they want to buy into Twitter. One of the thoughts is that they haven't done this because they don't want to get in a bidding war against the richest person in the world. I don't know, but that's coming out. So one of the things I wanted to talk about before we get too far here, and Coconut Pete's here. Let me just say hi to Coconut Pete. My theory is Twitter is actually run by the CIA, so that $43 billion is chump change to the government. Interesting. All right. What do you base that on, Coconut Pete? Put that in the comment section. Let's see here. We got Sim Architect here. He's saying he wants to take it, fix it, do a new IPO, and make a lot of money. So take it, fix it, and then make it private. Take it, make it private, fix it, and then do an IPO to make a lot of money. Could be. When you say fix it, Sim Architect, what do you mean? Do you mean fix the freedom of speech issues? Allow people who have been on the platform and have been deplatformed to put them back on? How would you fix Twitter? That would be great to know in the comments. I'd like to know that. All right. So where are we at? We talked about the legal strategy to get a corporate takeover. We talked about how much of the shares you want. Elon wants 100%. It's going to be hard to get a majority of shareholders to vote for that, probably. And we talked about the price. $54 is reasonable, but I'm sure it's not going to seal the deal, especially when you're negotiating. And when I say I mean the shareholders are negotiating against the richest person in the world. So the next question for us to talk about is there, besides getting other bids for the company, is there something that the board of directors can do to push off this takeover, to stop it? And there's been some discussion in the news just in the last hour or two that the board of directors has been talking about the poison pill defense to takeover, which is often written into the bylaws for large corporations. And basically that just means that it's a situation where the corporation offers more shares at a discounted rate to minority shareholders to dilute the value of the shares and the value of the person who's trying to take over the company, like in this case, Elon Musk. And then it makes it more expensive to acquire. So that may be the case. I don't know if it's really the best strategy right now. Elon is on kind of, he's on the fence about buying this anyway. We're going to look at an interview, but the point of it is he's not like, I am getting Twitter and that's the end of it. He's kind of like, oh yeah, I'm considering getting Twitter and this is a reasonable offer, that stuff. And then the other part about poison pill is that, of course, you dilute the value. And so that could result in a decreased share price for the other minority shareholders. So by putting this poison pill in, it actually could hurt the shareholders' value in Twitter already. So it may not, they've talked about it, but it may not make sense in this particular case. The other question that comes up is when you've given this $39 billion offer, and even if you are the richest person in the world, how do you pay for it? Now, there's been some discussion in the media about, Elon certainly has enough net wealth to just literally write a check for Twitter. However, it would require him to liquidate certainly shares of Tesla and other investments that he has, and he's going to have to pay major capital gains on that. So probably he would not opt to use much of his personal resources to buy Twitter. He would probably finance the deal. And then you think about what is the financing. I guess Twitter has cash on hand, about $6 billion. So you can subtract that from the deal. Makes it essentially a $33 billion deal. And let's say you wanted to fund 10 billion yourself, 12 billion yourself. And then you wanted to finance 20 billion. Well, that's a lot of money, as you may or may not know. So 20 billion with 3% interest or so is going to be $600 million in interest per year to finance $20 billion. Now, what you generally do is you put that debt load on the corporation you're acquiring. And in this case, Twitter is producing $650 million in profit a year. So paying that debt service per year onto Twitter would really burden it a lot and disallow it from, increasing their technology and increasing their staff, buying new locations, those kinds of things. So it may not make sense for financing in a lot of different ways to finance this deal. And then, of course, it may not make sense for Elon to liquidate either. I mean, just all the taxes involved. So all these kind of factors, the fact that it's going to be hard to get the shareholders to agree to the takeover. It's going to be hard to get the price of $54 per share because they're going to keep on negotiating. Matter of fact, they're duty bound. The board is duty bound to get a better price. And the fact that the financing is really going to be tough. Unless Elon really wants to pay a lot of taxes, he's going to have to get financing, and the financing is really going to kind of, harm or burden Twitter a lot. This all makes me believe that this deal is probably not going to happen. That's what I'm thinking. It could happen, but what Elon says in the press, and we'll watch a couple interviews here, is that he really wants to push forward on freedom of expression, especially on Twitter and in the global internet. But that's wonderful. But if you're an individual and you're trying to live that motto, I don't know exactly that Twitter is the place that's going to happen and you'll be able to do that. Is it worth the finances to get to that state? Is it just a ploy of Elon Musk to own another major news distribution outlet and maybe allow some, give lip service to the freedom of speech argument, but at the same time, not allow, negative comments on Tesla or SpaceX or any of his investments? I guess a key thing for a billionaire when you become a billionaire is you try to buy a news outlet so that the stories, you can control the narrative on the stories, like Jeff Bezos and the Washington Post. And so this may be Elon trying to get a news outlet, so to speak, so he can control the narrative for his investments and his language. I don't know. But let me just say hi to a couple people who have joined us here. We got Tokyo Paul live. He's here. Hi, Ian, just saying hi. Going to watch you in the background. Well, thanks so much, Tokyo, very much. Kevin Hawthorne is here. Thank you so much for joining us, Kevin. We got Misconduct. Hello to you. And then we also got Brian Rock Ralifon. Hi, Ian Corzine. Hi, everyone else. That's so cool. You guys joined us. Awesome. It's great. So we're talking about those three different things. A lot of this is leading me to conclude that this is not happening. I don't know why you would make such a big stink about this, other than the fact that maybe Elon again wants additional press coverage. It's hard to tell. Let's do this. Let's look at a couple videos that he made today when he was being interviewed. I'll put that on the screen here. And let's see. So this one was a question: why offer to buy Twitter?
Was there a question?
Why make that offer?
Oh, so, well, I think it's very important for there to be an inclusive arena for free speech, where all, Twitter has become kind
Seems
of
nervous.
de facto town square. It's just really important that people have both the reality and the perception that they are able to speak freely within the bounds of the law. So one of the things that I believe Twitter should do is open source the algorithm and make any changes to people's tweets. If they're emphasized or de-emphasized, that action should be made apparent so anyone can see that action has been taken. So there's no sort of behind-the-scenes manipulation, either algorithmically or manually.
Okay, so he's saying that he really wants to help freedom of expression, and also what I'm really preaching, which is having people be beholden to the protocol and not the website. I love all that stuff. But again, all the complications that would ensue in order to make this happen, I don't know. It doesn't seem likely that anyone in the right mind would go through this. Let's look at a little bit more commentary here. The question is someone you don't like allowed to say something you don't like? If that is the case, then we have free speech. That's what actually.
And a good sign as to whether there is free speech is someone you don't like allowed to say something you don't like. And if that is the case, then we have free speech. And it's damn annoying when someone you don't like says something you don't like. That is a sign of a healthy, functioning free speech situation.
All right, so let's watch this one too.
My strong intuitive sense is that having a public platform that is maximally trusted and broadly inclusive is extremely important to the future of civilization.
But you've described yourself.
I don't care about the economics at all.
Okay, that's cool to hear.
It's really easy to say you don't care about the economics, but when in practice, with all the kind of almost economic waste that would occur if he were to actually successfully acquire Twitter, it doesn't make that much sense. And then let's watch this last one, because it does leave us to believe that there may be something we're missing here.
Okay, so you don't like to lose. If in this case you are not successful in, the board does not accept your offer, you've said you won't go higher, is there a plan B?
There is.
I think we would like to hear a little bit about plan B.
For another time, I think.
Another time?
Yeah.
All right.
It's super thoughtful.
Okay, so
oh, shoot.
You don't like to...
Oh, wow. So he says there's a plan B. I don't know if there's a plan B. I don't think there is. I don't know that he's thought this entirely through. It's very interesting. When you go through life, especially as an attorney, you have clients sometimes who are extremely successful. I've actually had a billionaire client before. And I got to tell you, some of the decisions that he made, maybe most of the decisions he made, were sometimes completely stupid and ludicrous. So when I'm looking at Elon Musk, I released a video yesterday. I'll put a link up top there to it. We looked at him, missing the filing date for an SEC 13D1 by 11 days. It just seems like when you have that much resources, that much money, that many employees that work for you, that you won't miss these deadlines. And it resulted in a lawsuit against him by Twitter shareholders or ex-shareholders. So it is interesting that when he's interviewed here, I don't care about the economics of it. I don't know that he's really focused on all the financial entanglements that would be involved in purchasing Twitter. And sometimes it just blows my mind because, gosh, if I had that many $1 billion, or even if I had $1 billion, you got to believe that my actions are going to be planned. I'm going to have staff to make sure we don't make mistakes on SEC filings, and that we really think about what is the ultimate goal in me owning 100% Twitter. We had Sim Architect come on and say, listen, I think what he's going to do is he's going to use, it's a fixer upper. He's going to buy it, turn it private, fix it up, and then IPO it. There's so many more ways to make more money, in my opinion, than to do that as a fixer upper. Twitter has extreme value when it comes to the public discourse. I do get that. And it would be wonderful to believe that a billionaire like Elon Musk would have these altruistic motives to maximize freedom of speech. No question. But what he's going to have to do to get there is really going to be economically wasteful. So I don't know. Let's move on to, we're talking about the deal now. We talked about the strategy that he's executing, hostile takeover. We talked about the shares he wants 100%. He also wants to pay $54, reasonable amount. We also talked about financing, and that we talked about the fact that it wouldn't make sense for Elon to finance this entirely himself, even though he could, because it would pay so much in taxes. If he did it, borrow money, and even if he got a really good interest rate on it, it's going to burden the company with a lot of debt that could cause a decrease in value in the shares and really a disservice to the company. The next step is, once you've kind of ironed that out, let's say he makes it past that. It looks like he's, the shareholders are going to vote in his way. The key is to negotiate the right way. And I got to tell you that he did not do that. I'm going to switch over here. I'm going to stop the screen share, and I'm going to show you this letter to Brett Taylor. Let's see here. Right here. And is that on screen? Okay, great. So this is the letter that Elon transmitted today to the chairman of Twitter. Very short, succinct letter. And it talks about his interest in being, Twitter having to be a platform for free speech around the globe. He also talks about the fact that he's putting an offer I want to buy 100% of Twitter for $50.20 per share cash. And he's talking about how the fact that amount is a good deal because it's a premium over the days when he had just started investing in Twitter. But the part that I want you to focus your attention on is right here. It's basically the last sentence of the second to last paragraph, and that is, my offer is my best and my final offer, and if not accepted, I would need to reconsider my position as a shareholder. If I were the lawyer for Elon Musk at this point, I would never, ever advise this. For one, it's completely see-through, right? Elon arguably is a very skilled businessman. When you go into a negotiation that's super big, $39 billion for one of the most public companies, what I mean is known companies on the globe, you know that this is not your final offer. You have to make a offer to be able to start the process, but there's no way this could be your final offer. So, and then the other part is like, the shareholders know that he's the richest person on the earth, and we're talking about a $39 billion offer. They're certainly going to counter. And so it's a very, it's almost juvenile writing here. My offer is my best and final offer. You either take it or leave it. It's almost like you're setting it up so they say, leave it, because no one in their right mind is going to do that. And frankly, I never did a $39 billion negotiation with my clients, but I had some multi-million dollar, $10 million deals. And I would never write in a letter to someone that this is my final offer, because it is so see-through. I don't care if you're 2 years down the road in the negotiation, it is so see-through. It's I don't want to say it's a lie, but it's just like, it's transparent. It's not true. So don't write it down. So to me, it's a really off-putting thing that I would never do. And then I think the most off-putting thing is this big threat here. I would need, if it is not accepted, I would need to reconsider my position as a shareholder. So, he's threatening, he's saying, listen, dude, I brought your share price up from $39 to 45 now, and maybe 54 or whatever it's going to be in the future. And if you don't accept my best offer, I'm gonna sell all my shares and tank your stock and say you're horrible. Really a bad way to start off a negotiation. I would never advise a client of mine, corporate or otherwise, to include in the initial offer a threat, which is that, listen, you either take this or I'm going to tank your company. I mean, I was going to use a bad word right there, but I was thinking that this is a great way for the board and the larger minority shareholders to say F off. And it is so transparent and it is so not best practices that it leads me to believe that maybe Elon really doesn't want Twitter. I mean, why would you put this in your initial offer? First of all, you would do a friendly takeover legal strategy. You would talk to the board. You'd say, listen, I have interest in this. It would be good for the shareholders. Can you release your books to me? That would be the first thing. But even if you couldn't get there, let's say you just, you're just so rich that you don't care. You don't want to go through that process, or you just think that the shareholders wouldn't sell to you. Even if you did that, you would, in your opening offer, you'd say, listen, I think Twitter is amazing. I want to make it better. I don't have time to go through a friendly takeover negotiation session. So I'm just going to put my offer right here and I hope you accept it. No reasonable responses will be denied. That would be a good way to execute the initial offer for a hostile takeover, but he didn't do it. Matter of fact, if you read the last couple of lines of his letter, he's basically, listen, you accept it or take it or leave it. And I would advise the shareholder, I'd say, leave it and tell him to F off. I'm not going to start this negotiation where we're going to become close for a long period. This is going to take a long time to execute, where you're threatening. Okay. These guys, I wish I had the slide up again. These guys are mostly billionaires. The shareholders that we're talking about are either large, BlackRock, Vanguard. They're large companies, or they're, Saudi princes. They're kind of used to getting their way. And so when someone says take it or leave it, they're going to say leave it and get the hell out of here. So another reason why it doesn't look promising that Elon will take over Twitter. Again, I could be wrong. This is my own opinion. These opinions are drawn from 20 years of litigation experience and negotiating deals for clients for a really long time. But it could all be wrong. But I have to tell you that I'm probably right. I just want to talk about a couple things. If the deal did go through, what would happen to Twitter? And, of course, Elon has told us, especially in these interviews that we watched today, that, he's going to he's going to relax strict content moderation policies. He also wants to probably implement a subscription-based model for Twitter so that there's no ads. People pay to be part of it, and that's how they make their money, which all seems great. I think even in the past, Elon has said that, I want everyone who's, verified on Twitter to have a check mark. It's the big check marks thing is what a lot of people want on Twitter. So those are the things he says he would do. One of the things I was going to say in the comments, if you could leave me a comment, what do you think he really will do? I mean, will he make more freedom of expression on Twitter? Will he protect his corporate interest? I would love to know if you have thoughts about that in the comments there. Right now, I want to just take a moment to say hi to some people who have spent some crucial time with me here. This guy or person supports Elon Musk to buy Twitter. Thank you for joining us there. We got Void Dweller here. Is it still possible for him to take Twitter? The answer to that question is absolutely yes. There is no question about it that he could do it. We need some key facts. If I was a lawyer analyzing this, key facts are, what do the articles or the bylaws say about a takeover? My opinion would be much better if I knew it was merely a majority of shareholders had to vote to allow Elon to buy all the company. If it's 51%, or some variant of that, 35 or 43 or whatever it was, then his path would be much clearer. But I will say that it's not being on a good foot doing a hostile takeover. It's asking for a lengthy and expensive process. And I know Elon, he must think that it doesn't matter. He has so much money that there's no way he could ever sink. But it's not just about the money at this point. And he actually says it's not about the economics, but it's not about the money. It's the time and the stress. Why in the hell? I don't know how old Elon is, maybe in his 50s, or I think. Why would you want to go through this? And even if you have people that will go through this for you, you're still going to be called to interviews, and you're going to have to meet with people, and you're going to have to do all sorts of stuff that you may not want to do. So it is absolutely possible that Elon could take over Twitter. It is absolutely possible that he is entirely genuine and that he just wants to change the policies and change the management at Twitter. He doesn't care if it costs him, I'm going to estimate upwards of $54 billion because of all the costs and the lawyers and all the different things he's going to have to spend on, and the interest and all those things. But if you were saying, Ian, or bet on it, do you think that he will take over Twitter? I would bet all day and Sunday that he would not take over Twitter for sure. Sim Architect says, investors know the share price will tumble if the deal doesn't go through. Absolutely, that's true. He also says he could dump his shares and launch a competitor. He could, but you know what? Who was I listening? Who said that? Oh, I was listening to Chris Dixon, who's the head of Web3 acquisitions for Andreessen Horowitz. And one of the things that Twitter has, which no other platform has, is namespace. There's just no dispute about it. People come to me and they say, Ian, why Web3? Why a lot of talk about the metaverse and all those things? And really, it's because of monetization. Web3 gives creators like you out there an ability to make way more money. Right now, we're just taking crumbs from the corporations that aggregate our audiences for us, right? So there is no dispute that Twitter is the number one generally consumed global place for news and commentary and anything that's in the public discourse. Twitter is it. So launching competitor, we saw Donald Trump, Truth or whatever social, it's not doing well. It's probably going to die soon. It is really hard. It is a one of a kind. It is a gem for a corporation. So I don't think there's any way that even Elon could launch another social media platform or buy another social media platform and elevate it to the level of Twitter. I just think it is there. It's the thing. Everyone knows how to use it. They're going to use it. Now, in the future, I think that's going to change. And the reason why it's going to change is because I think we're going to get much more small group oriented on social media. We'll talk more about that in my videos. But for right now, I don't think he can compete with that. Okay, we got Neo Matrixology. I'd like to learn about that. I wouldn't use Twitter if it wasn't. I wouldn't use Twitter if it wasn't free. I can tell you that for sure. I wouldn't use Twitter if it wasn't free. Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. I mean, you can make that opinion. But what about the fact that if you are different? What if you were a person that was a journalist or someone that wanted to make news or wanted to, share his NFTs on a social media platform? Got to tell you, Twitter is the number one platform for Web3 right now. I don't know why it was picked. Certainly Discord is a close second, but it is. So what if you were in the Web3 space? You were a virtual architect, you were an NFT artist, you would pay, or you might pay $3.99, $4.99, $10.99 a month to be able to access this big audience. Because one of the things that our new web that's coming up, Web 3, doesn't have is distribution. There's two parts to the internet or to marketing on the internet, and that is distribution and monetization. And right now in Web 2, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all those social media platforms, we have distribution. They've done a really good job of helping us get to an organic audience. But what they've not done, and it's in their interest not to do this, is they haven't given creators a good ability to monetize. And with the Web3 blockchain protocols, we're going to be able to monetize better. Gosh, if you want to put out works of art, instead of painting it on a wall, you do it on a computer and then you sell it for money. You're a music artist. You have a new album, you release all the songs that you can buy as NFTs, and then you can sell the stems and make even more money, and then I'll give them access to future concerts, all these different things. So monetization is great. But what I got to tell you is that with Twitter and with YouTube and with Facebook and Instagram, Even Chris Dixon, one of the smartest men in the world, will tell you that there's no substitute. Distribution is great. It's organic reach that you get. So people would pay a nominal amount to be able to be on Twitter and to get to advertise and to grow an audience and then hopefully monetize that audience later. So you may be different than the rest. We got Raymond Villanesor. You're only thinking it from one legal. He knows what he's doing. It wasn't a mistake. He hiccuped the filing to offset the information hitting the internet to double pump it. Well, it was a strategy then. Well, too bad, because he's going to have to pay a fine from the SEC for the late filing, and he's going to have to probably settle the shareholder class action lawsuit, which I did a video on yesterday. And my estimation is for $50 million. Now, $50 million to him is nothing, but that's something, right? So I don't know. I got to tell you, man, I think that when you're a billionaire and you're at that level, you're more thought out than that. To me, this trend, and again, I don't have nothing against Elon Musk. If he was here, I would give him a hug and say, you've done amazing things for society with your electric cars and batteries. But what I have to say is, I don't know how well thought out he is. I think sometimes he's maybe online and he says, I wish I could control Twitter and make it better. All right, do that, and maybe he doesn't think it out as much as he should, because we've seen a couple mistakes. We're looking at mistakes here, right? The fact that he did a hostile takeover, I think, is a mistake. The fact that his effort to be able to buy 100% and then take it private, I think, is a mistake. The fact that the financing road for him buying Twitter is not clear, I think, is a mistake. Yes, he could liquidate his assets, but he'd have to pay so much in taxes. It doesn't make sense. It'd be wasteful. Getting the financing for $20-30 billion is going to cost $600 million to $1 billion in interest a year. And that's with a great interest rate. So got to think of these things, man. You got to think of these things before you start spouting your mouth. All right. Be vegan. Yeah, that's fine. Let people pay if they don't want to see ads. Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm thinking about Hulu, right? I remember Hulu for a long time. I think it was free, but you would watch the show. It would be just like a network show, and you'd see ads. And then they did this thing where for $5.99 or $10.99, whatever it ended up being, you paid that and you got to see the shows without ads. I think it's an even trade, so long as it's beneficial for the consumer. Sounds like a good thing for me. I would not like to see. I hate ads on Twitter. It's annoying. Okay. I like how this guy's trying to freedom of expression shame me here. And also, dude, saving free speech is not economic waste, dude. Come on, dude. All right, so we got an Elon Musk fanboy here. Thank you for joining us. But I got to tell you that I don't have anything against him, but these moves that he's making and these motives that he's bringing out for buying Twitter don't ring true to me. It sounds to me like either he is very, what would I say, juvenile when it comes to corporate matters, or he is a fox and that he has thought this out and he wants Twitter to be able to limit the negative impact on his other investments in his life, like Tesla and SpaceX. So I don't think this is a smart business move, no matter what. The only other option I could see is, it's kind of like the Donald Trump thing, where he doesn't care the backlash. He's in the news. If you guys remember back, from 2016 to 2020, Donald Trump was in the news at the top of the list every single day. You might argue, I would never do that. I would never want to be hated but at least I was in the press. But maybe that's what Elon Musk is doing. I mean, certainly he's everything everybody's talking about for the past, several weeks. So maybe that's the plan. But again, I would never do it in this manner. And I think he's better thought out than this. I think this is a wrong move for Elon. I like this comment from Be Vegan Now. Elon should help make Truth Social available on Android. Yeah, exactly. Oh, you make me laugh. Oh, man. We got Gray Hughes Investigates. Boy, I want to check out his channel. Someone needs to stop Twitter. They have banned thousands for telling the truth, all to protect a political party. Well, Gray Hughes, I think that's your name. I think you're right. There's been a lot of errors. I was thinking about the lab where this mysterious illness came from and how there was a period of time where you couldn't talk about this. and you couldn't say that maybe it was created by people like this. I'm speaking in code, of course, because the platform that we're on also has these policies, but and now it's changed, of course. Now, of course, we talk about it all the time. So yeah, there's been grave injustices that happened in the last 3 years, which I'm really not happy about. As you can look at my other videos, I mean, I've made at least 20 videos on freedom of expression online, big proponent of it. I am a person that's even further than most. I mean, I think that there's a couple exceptions to free speech, and that has to do with time and place. You can regulate when certain speech can be heard, time and place, and you cannot advocate imminent harm to other people. That's it. Everything else, like Elon said in that video, when someone you don't like is saying something you don't like, that's freedom of expression. Fight bad speech, bad ideas with good ideas, good speech. That's me. So I guess that's the case. I hope that Elon is the savior for freedom of expression. It seems to me like with everything else that's going on in his life, that this taking on freedom of speech on Twitter is going to be a big part of his life and take up a lot of time that he would be spending on his Teslas and his rocket ships and batteries, and then the microchip in the head. I mean, be a lot of work. So, we got Futurology and Gamer Hub here. Do know that Russia has legalized privacy and encourages IP theft. Yeah, of course so. Copyright materials to avoid sanction. It could become global hub of piracy and IP theft. Okay, well, I don't know that to be the case, but I wouldn't put it past them. Things going over in Russia right now and Ukraine are so hard to understand and to believe. Speaking to a person that I work with who I think no longer lives in Russia, but lived in Russia, he's telling me that a majority of the Russian public is not for this military conquest, and it's a really sad situation in all regards. So, it's a difficult one. Oh, thank you so much, Gray Hughes. Thank you so much for the $10. I really appreciate that. I promise to put that back into the channel. Hopefully make some good content for you guys. The only goal I have here, I've done well as a lawyer, and I work on a daily basis with creators and help them get brand deals and navigate the NFT waters, make sure they're not violating copyright law. And when I make these videos, I just want to help you guys either understand or do something, and so it really means something to me when you spend the $10, because I know that money is scarce right now, and I really appreciate it. And soon our money will be central bank digital currency, so it'll be even more scarce. Like we talked about the last couple of lives. All right, so anyway, so let's just get back to the final thoughts on this Elon takeover of Twitter. There's a couple questions I have. The first one is, why Twitter? Why now? Why not earlier? Elon was similarly situated a year ago. Again, why now? Why Twitter? The only thoughts I have, we talked about it before, was that he wants to have a news outlet, so to speak, and be able to control that. He could have altruistic motives, and again, just want to spend $40 billion for free speech. Maybe he is, and God bless him if he is. But it doesn't ring true. So that coupled with the fact that, there's a lot of problems with this potential deal. The one I think we talked about before was the initial offer to Brett Taylor of the board of directors said, listen, this is my final and my best offer. Accept it or I'm selling my shares. I mean, that's just not a good way to begin the negotiation. I don't care if you have $39 billion in cash ready to go, ready to be transmitted to the shareholders. That is not a good way to begin a negotiation, and is a basis why I believe just that basis alone, why this deal won't go through. I also think that there's financing hurdles that are going to be really difficult to get around. There's going to be a lot of wasteful capital gains taxes paid if Elon Musk liquidates his assets to be able to fund this entirely. it would really hamstring Twitter if he tried to have Twitter pay for the debt load it would take to borrow $20 billion, $30 billion for the company. So a lot of reasons why I don't think this is going to happen. Again, these are only the opinions of myself based upon my experience as a litigator for 20 years. But if I were Elon's counsel, I would have given him much different direction. I would have listened to him, and he said, listen, I want to make Twitter better. I would go, okay, cool. Can you give me 48 hours to come up with a plan to make Twitter better, to allow more freedom of expression, to re-platform people that have been de-platformed, to let Twitter function on a different business model? Just give me 48 hours. And I would come up with a plan to contact Brett Taylor and the board of directors and say, listen, this is what we're thinking. Could this happen? And at least get that information from them first before I said hostile, right? Elon went straight to hostile, that legal strategy. The first legal strategy is to contact the people and just talk to them and figure out what the situation is. Frankly, 54 may be a reasonable offer, may not be, but what if Elon had contacted the board of directors and the major minority shareholders and said 48? I mean, who's to say that he could have gotten the company for cheaper if he just picked up the phone, and probably not the phone, but the email or a text message or something. So I think there's just so many better ways to go about this. And as a result, my thinking is that, this is not going to go through. I know you guys have different opinions, but I really believe that. I just want to say hi to a couple more people here. We got Nelvi, I'm Brazilian, listening to you. Well, thank you so much for listening to me. I'm really grateful that you spend your time with me, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. We got Gray Hughes thinking that Elon Musk may run for president. Trump/Musk. Well, first of all, Musk would never be vice president. That would be insulting to him. He would never take that position. Given what he's done, Elon Musk, it's possible he could run for president. I mean, my goodness, he's one of the most smartest men I've ever heard speak. And he certainly can keep multiple large-scale projects in his purview. But I don't think with Trump. And Trump wouldn't run with anybody unless he was the primary candidate. Okay, so Void Dwellers here. Is Elon the only billionaire who can really take over the big social media platforms like Google? I don't know that that's true. No, I don't think that's true. I mean, frankly, if Bill Gates or Warren Buffett or one of those people, or I'm blanking on his name right now. But if there was another corporation or another large investor, they could do that. They've made the decision not to. And frankly, you got to listen to them, right? Those big billionaires could have bought Twitter a long time ago, but they didn't think so. Now you could argue, well, it's because they didn't know. They didn't understand how impactful Twitter was in our day-to-day society. But you could also argue that they're really sophisticated and they really did know, and they don't think Twitter is a good buy. One of the things that was brought up, which I really like, and I think it wasn't Be Vegan. Oh, I know who it was. It was Raymond, and I think he was saying, if Twitter wasn't free, I wouldn't use it. And I take from it a really smart point, and that is Twitter, as much news that comes from it, is kind of not mainstream. If you're not a famous journalist or certainly a famous celebrity or YouTuber or something like that, you don't have a lot of likes on Twitter. And I'm just, there's certainly exceptions. But the point of it is that for most humans that are going to work and they work for a marketing company or they work at a restaurant, they're not using Twitter on a day-to-day basis. They might check their news. They might post every now and then. So my point of all this is that, if Twitter is really not that mainstream, at least for the common users, then maybe it makes more sense, even in this day and age, to have a news outlet like the New York Times or the Washington Post. Maybe that's why those billionaires went there, because they said, listen, the mainstream consumes those forms of media, not necessarily Twitter. Twitter just pops up as an embed on a website, and there's breaking news. Some reporter puts up their Twitter feed. It's not really like an interactive thing like Instagram, certainly like YouTube, like Facebook, where people are using it on a day-to-day basis and posting pictures of their families or this cool private jet that they rented just so they could take the picture. Raymond makes a really good point, and it may be that Twitter is not the best buy. Who cares? Who cares about Twitter? So I don't know. Maybe I'm just making that up. I'm just gonna let that sit, especially since Gray was so kind to contribute $10. Trusk or Mump? I like Mump way better. I want that on a bumper sticker. Mump. Let's see here. Reinstate Trump, whatever. All right. Let's see what B Vegan says. Elon can't be president. He's not born in USA. Oh, I forgot that he was not born here. But I think he'd be a congressman. Well, I think you're right, B Vegan. Very true. Very true. Well, anyway, guys, you know what? We've talked about it backwards and forwards. My opinion is Elon is not going to consummate this deal. Too many roadblocks. He didn't go about it the right way. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be a mess. We might get some media coverage in the next couple of weeks. I'm happy to talk about it going forward. But overall, the financing does not work unless the price tag goes down. It's not going to go down. Just want to remind you guys, as we go forward together and I make my videos, please never hesitate to leave comments in my videos and let me know what you want to see on the channel more of. I really enjoy doing commentary and talking about some of these current issues, especially as they affect Web3. I'm really most interested in Web3. I think all of you guys would benefit from that, really learning that. And as a result of that, I put together a weekly email called the Weekly Web3. There is a link to my email list in the description section below. Click on that, sign up, and every week, I promise just once a week, I don't want to bug you guys and take more time than I already do. You're going to get an email where I include not only some of the links to the latest videos you can watch directly from the email, but also I provide 5 unique Web3 opportunities. In other words, opportunities that are apart from those on Web 2. What do those mean? That means potential opportunities for you to create your own utility token, create your own tickets, learn how to get these new Web3 URLs, which are amazing. So like if you look at my Twitter profile, it's iancorzine.eth. I've set that up so that now I can have a website there, and also my digital wallet is right there. And this is going to be the future of URLs. We're going to have one address, and it's going to be interoperable per platform. So those kind of opportunities will come you in that email. So just sign up. It's free. I'm not going to bug you with it. If you don't like the email, please delete it. I just want to provide more and more opportunity for you as content creators, and people out there who want to freely express themselves online. And then, of course, we always continue the discussion on my Discord server, the Ian Corzine Discord server. There is a link to that in the description section below. Please join us. What's so nice about the server is that I have a legal questions channel. So if you have something that pops up in your head, you can always go into Discord, ask me that question, and I can respond. We also have various channels that have various Web3 opportunities that are available. So let's say you are into music NFTs. Let's just say you're a musician and you want to learn more about how to create music NFTs. You can go to that channel and talk to other people that do that, the other people that mint the NFTs for you, that create the NFTs, that do it themselves, and then interact and meet them and figure out how to do it. So yeah, the Discord server is a great service. Again, it is free. Just click on the link below and you can join. So again, appreciate this stuff, guys, today. And I'm going to put this comment off because I always leave it on. It's like my standard thing. And I will see you. I think we're going to have a video on Saturday and Tuesday. And we got another live coming up on Thursday. Bye-bye.